right, welcome to your midsummer edition of the Rocker Dogcast, the show that talks to people in and around the music world about their dogs. I'm your host, Tim Dill, alongside my faithful dog, Charlie, and today we zoom in on a real hero to dogs and other shelter animals in talking with live sound engineer Paul Thomas, who 5 years ago founded Roadies and Rescues, a nonprofit that transports dogs from overpopulated shelters to rescue organizations outside the state. And these are his hundreds of grateful rocker dogs.
My rocker dogs are the roughly 400 to 500 a year from the Central Valley of California that I help relocate to rescue organizations in Oregon and Washington, sometimes Montana and Idaho, or even British Columbia.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I'm honored to have you on the show. This is a bit different. You know, you do have musical backgrounds. You do live sound and concert engineering. You are the founder of Roadies and Rescues. That is how would you best describe that?
Well, basically, what the nonprofit does is we facilitate transportation for organizations in the Pacific Northwest area that are willing to take basically the overflow of dogs and cats from overcrowded shelters. We're based in the Sacramento area, so what's within our reach is primarily the Central Valley area, not really Southern California. It's too far south for us to go and then bring dogs all the way back to the Northwest. But we're primarily getting dogs out of the really overcrowded shelters in Stockton, Modesto, Fresno, occasionally going as far south as Bakersfield. But yeah, basically the Central Valley, that whole Highway 99 corridor that runs right down through the whole agricultural section of the middle of California.
Well, let's dive into quickly kind of your origin story. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this Roadies and Rescue was kind of born out of the pandemic. The concert industry was shut down, as we all know. You're kind of, looking for something to do. In hindsight, me looking at it makes perfect sense. You guys are born to work hard. You're born to work long hours. You're born to be on the road. You're born to load in and load out. What am I missing? Tell me a little bit more about the story.
No, you're not missing much. I mean, that encapsulates it much better than a chattermouth like myself can do. I'm too long-winded most of the time. But yeah, essentially what happened was that it was really amazing timing because just a few months prior to the pandemic, I had started volunteering at a dog sanctuary in the North Bay area. I live up in the Petaluma, sort of Santa Rosa area, about 45 minutes to an hour north of San Francisco. And I just started doing that. I only been doing that for a few months. And then when the lockdown occurred, there was definitely some panic in there because it was like not only did the concert venue that I've worked at for, I think I've been there for like 15 years in San Francisco, like they closed down, at least temporarily. My sound company that I have here in the North Bay, I tore up, I think, 40 contracts for events that I had that year, just within the first few months of the lockdowns. But it was doing that volunteer work gave me a reason to actually get out of the house once or twice a week because the animal welfare stuff was still considered an essential service.
Yeah.
And so it kept me from going stir crazy. And it also gave me a chance to go out and do something that made me happy and something that was meaningful, while also having very limited exposure to other people. So it was a pretty low risk thing to be, around when COVID was circulating. And through that connection to that world, that's how I found out that there were like underground networks of people like using Facebook and other social media apps to coordinate these out of state transports. I had no idea that dogs needed to get out that badly. I really just did not know that the shelter system was that overwhelmed. And so I recognized a few problems in the way that a lot of people were doing it. It's great that they were doing it, but a lot of times they would say, hey, we have this dog in Stockton, and there's a rescue organization up in Redding, 4 hours away, that's interested in taking this dog, and we just need to get it there. So someone would say, well, I can pick up the dog, at 8 a.m. from the shelter in Stockton when they open, and I can get the dog to Sacramento. And then somebody would say, okay, well, then I'll take the dog from Sacramento to Yuba City. And someone would say, I'll take the dog from Yuba City to Chico. And it would be sort of like this fireman's bucket brigade, but it would end up taking twice as long and like way more stops. And you have a stressed out dog that's being handled by all of these different strangers. And what could have been done in 3.5 hours took maybe like 6 or 7 hours. And you see one person has the dog in a crate in the back of their pickup, the next person has the dog sitting untethered on the front seat of their car. And, the conditions were always changing. It wasn't always like people weren't always following strict protocols.
Yeah.
And I just looked at that and said, as a professional roadie who spent over a decade of my life touring with bands, like a 16-hour day is totally normal if you're doing the van and trailer stuff in the beginning of your career. So I thought, why don't I just drive to Stockton, pick up the dog, and drive it to Reading, and then drive back to Petaluma? And people were like, "Oh my gosh, that's going to take like 8 or 9 hours of your day." And it's like, yeah, but it's just safer and it's way more efficient to do it that way. So I started kind of dabbling and doing that stuff around Northern California. And then it was about 6 months into the pandemic when they announced that Coachella 2021 was not going to happen. And this was like probably still like maybe 7 or 8 months away. And
Hmm.
I thought, oh man, like they know something that they're not telling the rest of us. This thing's going to drag on a lot longer. And then the light bulb went on, and I thought, okay, this would be something I can give roadies to do like during the pandemic. Like we're totally built for this. Like we're like if you need someone to drive 18 dogs in a van up to Portland, Oregon in one day, like we're made for that.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the perfect thing. Another thing that was really, really incredible, fortuitous timing, was that when I hatched the idea, I mentioned it to somebody that I had been doing some transportation for around Northern California. She was in a rural county up in like the Tehama County area. And she was having me send dogs down to the Bay Area because they were getting a lot more adoptions during COVID in the big cities, and the rural shelters are getting no attention. And what ended up happening was she wanted to retire out of running the nonprofit. And she said, look, if you want to make a run at this thing, if you think that this is going to be something you want to do, I can just basically like put you on the board of directors and sign over control of an existing nonprofit. I can just gift it to you, which is great because we don't have to spend thousands of dollars on lawyers and like wait for an answer from the IRS for a few years.
Right.
That process can be really, really expensive and time consuming. So we walked right into having control of an existing 501c3. And by the time everything was buttoned up, which took about 5 to 6 months to get everything kind of like legally squared away, when I announced that we were launching Roadies and Rescues and I put the information out there to the public, that was exactly 1 year into the lockdown. So that happened in late, I think it was like the third week of March of 2021. So it was exactly a year into the lockdowns.
Yep.
At that point, everybody, like all these people I knew, like I knew tour managers and lighting people and monitor engineers and front of house engineers, all these folks were like, oh my God, this is a great idea. I would love to get out and get involved and do something like this. And they said, and I said, okay, well, hold tight. We're kind of figuring it all out. A huge number of all these rescue organizations immediately start contacting me. They're like, we need your help. We've got to get dogs out of California. We desperately need your help. So that all happens at the end of March of 21. And then about 6 weeks later, they announced that California was going to reopen concerts starting, I think, June 1st or something.
Right.
So everyone that had been talking to me previously about wanting to get involved, they just ghosted. Like, I mean, that's not like,
Yeah. Yeah.
no shade towards them, but everybody was getting called back to work at the sound companies. Tour managers were having to like book all these makeup contract dates
Yeah.
and all this stuff that was left over from 2020 and all these obligations they had to fulfill. But the word was out to the public and everyone's asking for my help. And I'm anticipating I'm going to have to go back to work soon as well. So it was like, how do I keep this going now? Like that first summer of 2021, I like the beginning of the summer, I went to Portland or Seattle or something like that, like 7 times in 9 weeks. It was almost every single week. I was loading a 15 passenger van with all the seats pulled out. I was like loading it with dog crates
Yeah.
almost every single week and driving a 1,200-mile round trip.
You mentioned it's what you're built for. It's what roadies are built for, and it's a quote I took, and it would kind of highlighted one of your hectic days. And I just want to pull a couple of, this is the numbers of it all. But that particular post where you said hectic day, this is what roadies are built for. 49 dogs, a 23-hour day. That's
Yeah.
incredible. There was there
Yeah.
was there was other trips with 18 dogs, 37 dogs, 34 dogs, 23 dogs, two ducks, 31 dogs, five cats. And I think one of the most recent in May, Sacramento to Seattle, you hit six rescues with 26 dogs in an 18-hour day.
Yeah. What typically happens for me is living in the North Bay. We have a few years ago we did a GoFundMe and we raised enough money to buy this old AT&T box truck. So it's like a 10 foot, it's like a cube van. It's got like the 10 foot long box on the back of it. And then we just gutted it. We kind of ripped everything out of the box that was in there and we just outfitted it for being able to strap down and hook up all of these dog crates on both sides of the aisle. But yeah, the days are really long. I usually will leave the Bay Area at 6 in the morning because I have to drive about an hour and 40 minutes up to Sacramento where we store the van. And then if I'm leaving Sacramento at like 10:30 or 11 in the morning, and then oftentimes I'm not getting done until 1 o'clock or 2 in the morning. But again, started my day at 6 a.m.,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's crazy. Like a lot of these days, it's really like if I can get away with like a 15-hour day, that's a real luxury doing this
The
stuff.
half
But there's
day.
a lot. Yeah, half day. Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your personal, I guess, exposure to dogs. Did you grow up with dogs? Do you have a history?
Yeah. I had a dog through like sort of my later teenage years. My primary companion animal, really from the age of 5 to 22, was a cat, actually. Tigger that we had. I still miss that cat, and she's been gone since 1992.
Oh my gosh.
But that was like really like my best friend growing up. My whole relationship with animals is a bit complicated, having grown up in a rural area, like on a farm where animals were raised for food. And, that's a whole other philosophical conversation. But my family, we'd always had like cats or dogs at various times. But then my whole adult life has always been so unstable and unpredictable that
Yeah.
it's never really been particularly good for me to have pets of my own, especially because in the mid 90s when I was touring as a roadie for a bunch of punk rock bands from like basically from like 95 through the end of like 2000. After that, I kind of bounced around the country a bit, moving to different places. Whether it was roommate situations or whatever, it's just never really a good opportunity to have pets of my own.
Yeah. Are you currently with dogs through a relationship?
Yeah. So my girlfriend has two dogs that I really adore. They're great. And they're the sort of like ridiculously mismatched odd couple of, you've got this part border collie, part, I don't know, maybe some sort of German shepherd or something, but like you got like a 70-pound dog and then you've got like a 10-pound, like maybe like Maltipoo or
Okay.
something. I'm not really sure what Frankie is. And the really big dog is a solid black color and the little dog is all white and fluffy, and they're totally ridiculous. And all they want to do is play bitey face all day and chase each other around the house. And yeah, it's great. It's like a very like wacky comedy duo. Yeah, Frankie actually has his own Instagram, and I think within the first 2 or 3 months, it's Frankie the Pooh. I think there's like an underscore in there or something like
Yeah.
that. But within I don't know 2 or 3 months, he had like at least 2 to 3 times as many followers on Instagram as what I've built up over 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Funny
He's
how
pretty
that
adorable
works.
and he's hilarious.
Well, let's move on to the zoomies, and that's how I wind down every show with five fast, frivolous questions. We'll use your two current dogs you're dating, for lack of a better description. What were their names again?
Oh, it's Frankie and Cal,
Okay,
a
Frankie
nod
and Cal.
to Superman's dad.
Nice. The first question, let's use random dogs. You're exposed to dogs every time you make one of these trips. Do you allow them to lick your face?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, anything I can do to make the dogs more comfortable on a really, really scary and confusing day for them. I mean, you got to be careful too. Like, you definitely start like reading body language better and realizing like maybe I don't want to put this little chihuahua too close to my face
Yeah,
because I might actually get nipped or something. But some dogs are just so sweet and affectionate. They come right up to you, and as soon as you lean down, they just want to give kisses, and I'm totally fine with that.
yeah. All right, question two, let's use Frankie and Cal. Do either of them have a theme song in your mind?
It's gonna sound really cruel or mean, but like Frankie, I cradle him like a little baby, and then I just sing this little dumb little song, and I just go, "My name is Frankie. I'm a stupid baby," and he just lays there on his back with his paws folded over, and he just stares at me, and then he like tries to lick my face.
All right, question three for my straight up musician guests. The question is if you took them on tour, what would be on their tour rider. But we can say if they accompanied you on tour, what could you throw in there for their tour rider for Frankie and Macau?
Yeah, they definitely would have to have a multitude of those hard plastic bones to chew on because no matter how many of them my girlfriend has in her house, if one of them has one of them, the other ones could even be within sight, but they only want the one that the other one has. So it just becomes this constant like tug of war, just like constantly harassing each other. And like the second one of them's distracted, the other one runs in and grabs the bone and runs off. And it's just like a constant game of like only wanting that one. So we'd have to have those around. Cal definitely needs supplements and things to kind of keep him calm. He's a very anxious dog. He's definitely got a lot of border collie in him. So he wants to like nip at heels and like push you and steer you around the house and steer the herd of sheep everywhere. So he would need like his calming supplements and then they would just need like their harnesses and leashes so they could just go out on walks and stuff.
All right. Question four. Do you have a dog voice?
Um, Yeah, I guess I do. I think it's like a little bit different for all of them, like because I think it probably doesn't even actually matter in terms of dog psychology. It probably to talk to them like in a softer voice or a higher pitched voice or a whatever. But yeah, whenever I'm like meeting all of these dozens of dogs that are getting loaded onto the transport on any given day, yeah, I probably just have some. I don't even know if there's one specific one, but I just kind of talk to all of them a little bit different.
Yeah. All right. And the last question, I always ask my guests to give a shout out to a organization, a service, or an individual that does good for dogs. I would like to take the time to shout you guys out, Roadies and Rescue, and I'd like you to answer who's the rock star out there doing great stuff for dogs? And I don't mean literal rock star. I mean, who's this unknown person doing the work of many?
Uh, you know, it's I definitely can't even single out a single one because the Bay Area is like there are so many good organizations. Like Muttville, who I had mentioned.
Yep.
Also in San Francisco, there's Beyond Rescue, who are just doing tremendous work. I work with those folks a lot. In the North Bay, you've got Dogwood, which is an incredible organization, and in the East Bay, you've got Rocket Dog, which also has like a bunch of music kind of connections there. Gosh, there's so many great organizations out here and just like great people. I think what's been really cool about this experience too is, going to these meetups in Sacramento where we're going to load all these dogs and Cliff, sorry, I get
Okay.
emotional when I talk about this stuff sometimes because the animal stuff is like kind of like, like emotionally provocative anyways.
Sure.
But like some of the stories of these people, like Cliff is always the driver who comes up in the Stockton shelter van. He's 80 years old
Wow.
and he's volunteering his days off to go to the Stockton shelter at like 7 o'clock in the morning and load up a whole bunch of dogs and drive them to Sacramento and then take the van back and hose out the van in Stockton. And then my friend Mark, he drives the Stanislaus Modesto shelter van a bunch of times a month and does other volunteer work with them. And he's retired. He comes out and he does this in between chemo treatments
My
for skin
gosh.
cancer. The people you meet, people I've known who've had a guy named John, who's also in the Modesto area, who for a couple years was plagued with a debilitating mystery illness that doctors couldn't even figure out what was wrong with him. Massively debilitating, like walking with a cane, still getting in his pickup truck, couldn't ride his motorcycle anymore, but would put some dogs in crates on the front seat of his pickup truck and drive him to the meetup.
It's inspiring, and I'm curious too if to speak to these individuals in that are they inspired by the animals as well? Like I always go when I pick out an attribute of a dog, it's resilience, especially shelter dogs. And
Yeah.
if you're seeing this, it's like resilience knows resilience. Like if you're going through something personal or physical or an illness, you do look at these dogs and be like, we'll fight this together, or we're
Yeah.
partners in this battle.
Yeah, I think when you do have some exposure to this and you see what these animals go through, and then you see that they still come out of it like totally loving, wonderful animals, it is really galvanizing for sure. If these animals can weather the storm, then hopefully so can I.
Yeah. And doing good feels good.
Yeah,
It's not
absolutely.
easy
Yeah,
to
I
feel
think
good.
it's very
So
therapeutic,
yeah,
very, very helpful for people to be doing that stuff,
yeah,
which is why I want to get more roadies involved, because I think roadies face a lot of their own unique, interesting challenges with mental health issues and stuff. And that's kind of the focus of the YouTube channel is to do long form interviews or interview roadies and talk with people about the challenges of the touring lifestyle and that sort of thing.
yeah, yeah. Well, Paul, thank you for coming on the show, number one, but thank you for what you do because when you see someone like you who's doing the heavy lifting, it's very inspiring to do more. And I know it takes a village to do these things. And yeah, but thank you. Keep doing the good work.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate being able to talk to you, given that I'm not like an actual like musician or anything like that,
Yeah, but you're
but
in
just
it.
more
You're in
a
it.
music adjacent.
Yeah, no, but you're in it. You've got the pedigree.
Yeah, thank you.
Carl, you're a damn good dog.